Okay, there's a nice picture there too.
Here. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Builder Partnerships Webinar Wednesday. Our webinar today is Introduction to Home Building, how all the pieces come together. We're going to discuss how each of these different departments that are involved in a home building company need to work together in order to create an effective environment for your organization. Today, our presenters are Ed Hauck, Rick Maurer, and Jim Weigel. Much of what you're learning today is going to be timeless, and you can use it in good times and bad. So make sure you stay until the very end and take lots of notes. Before we get started, if you could switch the slide, Rick, we have a few housekeeping items. We are recording the webinar, and you will get a recording tomorrow on a follow-up email, a copy of the link. And although all of you are muted, we still encourage you to ask questions. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A bubble, and you can use that to ask questions throughout the webinar. If possible, we will try to answer them as they come up, but we'll likely reserve those until the end. If you are watching the replay, please feel free to email us with your questions, and we'll get back to you with those as soon as possible. And at the end of the presentation today, you will be directed to a survey. Please go ahead and fill out the survey. It helps us know how we can do our webinars better and what kind of information you guys are looking for so we can tailor our webinars to exactly what you guys need. We do want to thank our sponsor, ECI. Monica Wheaton is on the line, and she's going to give you a quick overview of what ECI does and how we are partnered with them.
Hi, thank you, Emma Jane, and this is Monica Wheaton with ECI. Welcome everybody to the call. This is going to be a great webinar. We're excited to hear all this material from these guys. Just real quickly, if you look at the slide, you'll see that ECI has several different management solutions for builders. Our main one is Mark Systems. We also just acquired Build Tools, which is a tool for integrating or managing your processes for smaller builders. So if you're building under 20 homes a year, you might want to take a look at Build Tools, LotView, and Lasso. One of the really cool things about Mark Systems is that we are integrated for rebate submissions with builder partnerships. I believe today is the deadline. If you haven't gotten your rebate submissions in, make sure you get those in today. And then we highly encourage you, if you're using Mark Systems or even if you're considering it, to look into that integration. And basically what it does is it'll take your data out of the Mark Systems and submit it right to builder partnerships, so you don't have to really do any kind of other submissions. You'll just get a report at the end of the quarter or the end of the month, and then a check. So thank you again for being here today, and thank you to Builder Partnerships for letting us sponsor this session. Back to you, Jane.
Thank you so much, Monica, and we always value the relationship we have with you. It's been very valuable over the years. We do want to remind you, we do have our next session of HBU Home Builder University coming up starting next week. We have Purchasing 201 and Accounting and Finance 201. You do not have to have attended purchasing the first class. You can just hop right in and join the class. So go to builderpartnerships.com/events for details and register for the class. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim. He's going to kick us off on this webinar.
Thanks very much, Emma Jane, and thanks to Monica for sponsoring this. Good afternoon, good morning to all on the call. And together we're going to learn a little bit about building two things. One, homes that people live in, and two, businesses that people work in and on in order to build those homes. It's all kind of fundamentals, and some of you have probably seen this before. I get laughed at here at Shinn Consulting for using this slide too much, but we are all about fundamentals, just as Vince Lombardi told the Green Bay Packers when they were on top of the world in the 60s. All he did was practice the fundamentals over and over and get better and better at it. And that's what we're all about in the home building business as well. So what we're going to be talking about today and in the courses that follow are just some basic terms, the functions, the processes for a building business or related businesses, whether that's floor covering, and a lot of times even the manufacturers and the service providers, even like ECI, have similar kinds of processes and terms and functions. And awareness of what the typical problems and opportunities that home building companies face, and the people who work in them and for them, especially trade partners. And then understanding the fundamentals of how a home building works, also from the perspective of ownership and senior leaders. Go right ahead, Rick. So, for example, in a house, there are some key documents that we want people to learn. We want them to, whether you're an employee, a new employee of a home building business, whether you're in a manufacturing capacity as a salesperson, whether you're selling homes, whether you're a trade partner trying to work with home builders, or you're new to that business, there's certain terms and key documents that are all about the house, whether that's the plans and elevations or plots and pricing addenda, all the way through customer surveys and homeowner manuals. What are all these documents about, and how do they fit, and how do they work together, and why do we have them? And then in the home building business, there's a few key stages, especially to building a house. We have to buy that land. We have to somehow get it permitted and entitled. We have to go develop it and turn it into finished lots. And then we have to do some site work to get that, whether that's excavation, et cetera, and building the foundation through the rough structure, full enclosure. And then those finishing trades come in. We have to go orient the homeowner to that house. And then somehow the homeowner has to actually pay us money, and we deliver the keys to them. And then occasionally something goes wrong and we need to go fix it and make sure that that's working well. And then there are just key practices that we have learned in the Shinn method over the years that really work well for the very best home building businesses who build the best homes and have the best satisfaction for homeowners. Have some key practices, and here's just a few examples of them. We have a customer contact, what used to be called a card, but even like Lasso right now keeps all kind of data in customer relationship management systems. So we need something to keep track of our contacts and interactions and moments of truth with our customers. We need to have a construction schedule that works once we've started that home. And a lot of times, many of the problems that occur are pre-construction or before construction, and a lot of times that construction schedule for many builders can take longer than the actual building the house. And we need to have a quality control checklist that we're regularly using to make sure that the job is ready for the next trade partner and that the quality is there according to the customer requirements when they finally move in. And then for ourselves, we're trying to eliminate all kinds of variances, whether that's cost variances, schedule variances, or quality variances. We're trying to identify them and eliminate them. From the business standpoint, there are some key documents as well. Articles, bylaws, operating agreements, some sort of strategic plan, some sort of actual business plan as to how we're going to operate the business this year and what our priorities are and who's accountable for accomplishing what when. We typically need to have an organization chart, but what we need to realize is that organization chart just doesn't have boxes for names of positions and people in it, but we're actually delegating authority to make decisions and take actions to each of those people, and that needs to be clear. One of the best ways of planning the business is through a chart of accounts where it tells us what our business plan is in terms of money. So where are we going to put the money? Who is going to be accountable for it? How are we going to use these different codes for income statement, balance sheet purposes, for jobs, and all the details that go into those job costs? Having meeting agendas so that we can actually have a meeting that's productive and the decisions and actions are recorded well, and the upcoming decisions and actions and information that's necessary is clear to all. We have position guides so that once we've defined a position, it's clear what results that position is accountable for accomplishing and what authority that position has been delegated to go accomplish that, and especially the kind of authority that hasn't been delegated, so they have to go get approval from their supervisor. And then there's a variety of management reports, whether they're financial, job cost, or variance. So they're reports in terms of money about where do we expect the money to go, where did it actually go, and who's going to take action when to cause that to get back on track if it isn't. Then we have schedule and cycle time, which are time-related reports. Are we on time? If not, what is an exception to that, and who's going to take action when to get that back on track? There are also quality, safety, service, and customer reports that do the exact same thing. They're telling us, are our quality standards, our safety standards, our service, and our customer loyalty standards being handled well or not? Then we have what we've developed over the years, thanks to Chuck and Emma and Lee Evans before them, key principles and practices, both from an organizational standpoint about how to structure an organization and why to structure it in certain ways versus others for different sizes of businesses and over time during different stages of growth. How to conduct a one-on-one meeting, especially with those who you're supervising, whether that's a trade partner or an employee, to make sure that people's responsibilities are clear, they're being supported properly, and their performance is being recognized, both good and bad. How to create one-to-one relationships where the interaction between the schedule point, a pay point, a quality point are all on the exact same page, so that the business is streamlined when we're running everything. We also have a key focus on profitability, starting with direct construction costs, so that we can actually make money in this business and survive and thrive over time. And one of the tools for accomplishing that, especially for figuring out land costs or even direct construction costs, is through the use of a tool we've come to call an upside down income statement. And then for both all the people who work in the business and for the business itself, we're all on a path to excellence. And so what are the obstacles that get in the way of excellence from a business standpoint and from a personal standpoint? We're on different stages of growth, personally and in our business. And where are we on that, and what do we need to do to get to the next stage? Same thing with problem solving. Maybe we're ignoring it or denying the problem, or many times we've come to call a term that maybe Ed or Rick will talk more about, a sacred cow. That we just can't seem to touch that. We can't even talk about it. We can't even question it, because that's such a big deal to us that we can't think about it. Or what we stress an awful lot at the Shinn method is the management and leadership stages that we are going through for all of us. In some of the key areas there are systemic thinking and systematic thinking, so that we cause processes and systems to exist, so that we take those key tasks and those key decisions out of the hands of everybody having to mess with it all the time, make them routine, make them streamlined, and so that allows us to go spend our time on creative and innovative things to improve the business and improve our relationships with customers. Also, from a career and a business standpoint, thinking of our career and our business as a product and as a process to cause that product to get better over time. Then there are the key functions that we deal with. From a sales and marketing standpoint, we spend a lot of time on promotion and advertising, mainly digital these days, in order to go generate the leads that we need. And then we have a sales process, and a lot of times that is online these days as well, all of which has to become more digitized, along with all the production functions from design through warranty. And then the other things that keep the business going as well. How are we going to finance things and pay attention to the accounting of things, dealing with land and our general administrative processes, as well as management leadership. And if we have more than one owner, there becomes a governance issue, or if there's a transition between family members in the ownership. Looking at things from a core process standpoint in the business is, how are we understanding our customers? How are we acquiring our lots? How are we developing our new product? How do we allow our customers select options and upgrades? These are things that cut across all of the departments, all of the functions. How do we deal with the pre-construction process or construction quality control, or even identifying the processes and trying to improve them over time? How do we do all that stuff? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ed or Rick to continue on a few more of the details about how we do this.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jim. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. So basically, what Jim just talked about with the Home Builder University, the Home Building 101, basically, it's going to be a whole class that we can go through where we talk about all the different aspects of home building and all the different departments and how they all interact. The goal is that it's key for everybody within the organization. If you're onboarding somebody new, or if it's somebody that's been with the company for a long time, but maybe they know their department really well, but they really don't understand how the other departments interact and that one-to-one relationship that Jim had talked about. So, over the full program, we'll go through every department. For today's webinar purposes, we're going to go through the purchasing's role in the building operation, and then Ed's going to talk about production's role in the building operation. And just to preface it by envisioning employees that really need to know that interconnection and how the different departments work together is the goal of this information. So when we talk about the purchasing's role, the mission of the purchasing department is cost control, cost reduction, purchase value, and protection of profits. There's a lot of money going through the purchasing department. They're the ones in charge, they're the gatekeepers of all the contracts for materials and labor, and ultimately really do control not only the cost that's coming through, but the ultimate profitability of the company. And it's a critical department in the operation. When we talk about being critical service department, on any given day, and when you're working with anybody in purchasing or estimating, you have to understand that on any given day, they're dealing with new product development, the sales team, designers, the construction staff, accounting, CAD or architecture, and management, both high level and mid-level management. All throughout the company, every given day, there's fire drills. The owners may be looking for information on a product that nobody else in the company's even seen yet. Sales is looking for a number that's critical for a buyer that's coming through right now. Construction may be held up because of a trade that needs to be replaced, or a purchase order question that needs to go on. All these things have to be resolved immediately, and it's a critical department that a lot of information is coming through all the time. So when we talk about purchasing, if you're not around them every day, there's some key terms that's important to understand, and key terms you'll hear discussed within purchasing and the production side of things. One of them is scopes of work. It's a detailed explanation of what the builder expects from each trade. It's an empowering document in the fact that trades know exactly what they're agreeing to and what they're going to be held accountable for in the field. It's a job specific item. So the scope of work, it's specific to a plumber, specific to the cleaner, specific to the contractor for concrete work. The other term is contract trade agreement, sometimes referred to as like a master agreement. In purchasing, we'll have a generic agreement that applies to all trades. So it doesn't matter if you're the concrete vendor or you're the cleaner. Everybody gets the same agreement, and it deals with more high-level specifics that it applies to the same warranty work, what the responsibilities are for warranty, what the payment obligations are, what your insurance requirements are. That's all part of this general trade contract or master contract that goes along with the scope of work that is then specific for that specific plumbing or concrete trade. Some other terms would be purchase orders or work orders. They let the trade know what the inclusions are in the house, how many, and what the total dollar amount is going to be paid. Variance purchase orders, Vpos as we call them, or change orders. They're items that are purchased in addition to the original PO or the original budget. The key difference between these two are Vpos are costs for something like a broken window sash, so you don't know who broke it, or you hit rock during the foundation, it causes additional excavation time or concrete. It's an extra that has no revenue associated with it. Change orders would be something more along the lines of a buyer wants at the last minute to add a sunroom, and it gets added as a change order if it's possible to be done, but it also has revenue that offsets the cost. So you talk about Vpos a lot and change orders, which are both, they both go through similar ways, but one has a revenue and one does not. Construction drawings let the trades know where things are going to go into the house. So it's specifically where a floor break might be, or where the double wall vanity is going to be in this house, or where a half wall is going to be. And then finally, schedules. They let the trades know when to show up, what their duration is, how long they're going to be there, and then what the dependency is from other tasks before they start their work. All of this can be managed through an integrated management system too, like with Mark Systems that we were talking about sponsoring this webinar. They all have ways to process the purchase orders from the contracts, as well as by the interfaces for the contractors, such as ITK, which Marks uses. And to recap those definitions, schedule tells them when we want it. A PO or a VPO is how many of it we want. A plan is where we want it. And the scope is what it means. So your scope is what's individual to, like I said, the plumber or the concrete vendor. So that's saying for the plumbing, these are the things, the plan, the POs, the schedule, and that tells them all the specifics that go along with that scope. So when we move on to the actual roles, the actual functions of the purchasing and estimating department, estimating and purchasing are two very distinct functions. First, we talk about estimating. It requires detail and accuracy, technical and mathematical skills, as well as need for quiet concentration. There's always exceptions to every rule, so I'm not saying every estimator is this way, but throughout my experience, estimators tend to be a little bit more introverted, as well as very, very regimented. They're the individuals that, come in the exact same time every day, take lunch the exact same time every day, leave the exact same time. And there's other factors that are very regimented about their routine. But it's necessary because everything is very regimented in what they do, very specific with their takeoffs, with their processes and procedures. And it's a critical function in our purchasing departments. Now, when you talk about the purchaser, it's totally different. The purchaser requires an outgoing personality, very, very extroverted, willing to talk to anybody. Strong negotiating skills are critical. They're always negotiating contracts and when they're going through the specifications or new products coming out, they're always negotiating what products are going to be used and everything. The ability to multitask. I said earlier in this presentation about all the different departments that we interact with. And when you talk about purchasing, interacting with all those departments, none of their issues that they have are going to be able to be put to the bottom of the pile. Everything's a fire, everything's critical. So it's really, really important that the person in this role has the ability to multitask between all of those different duties that they have on any given day. So fall back to estimating a little bit here. Now we're going to go from the overall personality of those two individuals to more of the daily functions of purchasing and estimating. So we'll go back to estimating for a second and talk about estimating functions. They definitely participate in the new product development quite a bit, and it's what they should do. Now, I will say throughout this process, I know the world we live in today, we all wear multiple hats, and some things may vary from company to company, but in an ideal situation, there are some pretty distinct lines with what we should be having the estimators do and what we should be having the purchasers do. And when we're interacting with those departments, these are the things that they would typically want to funnel down to. So when you're dealing with new product development, they really control the process in terms of they protect the profits, they help guide the team, and they detail the process in writing. Part of this is they create the feasibility estimate that based on market research, they create a preliminary budget. They help guide the design and the specifications of the product based on unit costs that they control and specification sheets that they maintain. And they really help our companies with the go, no-go decisions on a lot of products before anybody in sales or marketing or anywhere else in the company ever sees them. There are a lot of times that we have no-go decisions that, with the help of the estimating department, isolating where the variances are, where there's some things that we might be able to manipulate with the architect and turn those plans into go decisions. So they're a critical part of this feasibility estimate process and the product development process. On an individual house basis, estimators are working on job cost estimates and budgets, and they create the purchase orders. Now, when we say create the purchase orders, that doesn't necessarily mean they're physically the ones generating the purchase orders. We talk about this one-to-one relationship, that there's one scheduling unit, one cost code unit, one accounting unit. You kind of work your way right through the program. So there's no silos within our companies. We all are working together. The estimator function is critical in coming up with what the units are and the unit costs are when building any house. That information is what's ultimately contracted by our purchasers when they're negotiating with the vendors. And that whole system is what creates the purchase orders. So they're an integral part, they're integral, they're a spoke of that hub that really creates those purchase orders and work orders to generate correctly down the road. Design Center, they're costing and pricing and working on price sheets for the Design Center options and selections all the time. They work on standard option pricing, costing and pricing same way. They're helping with whatever we need standard, sunrooms, morning rooms, flooring options. They're working on those every day and making sure that our sales team and our design teams have those prices that they need. Custom price requests, That's one that, we always try to limit custom price requests as much as we can. Chuck and Emma love to say that if taking a production builder, adding custom price requests is a way to ruin all their processes and procedures. And it really is. We want to limit the custom price requests, but in reality, there's always going to be some coming through, and they come through as CPRs and are priced and tracked through our estimating departments. They also create construction cost budgets by maintaining the reports and maintaining of those unit costs. A lot of times these will change as code changes, as specifications change over time. We go into new markets. And they also create the bills of materials, so the parts books, which become the basis for purchasing and give the detailed quantities and what products are going to be used where. Now moving over to the purchasing function, totally different role, totally different personality. And I know there's a lot of purchasers out there that work with some of the estimator functions that I just mentioned, but when where you separate the functions out and what they should be doing, a purchaser's function should really be focused on recruiting vendors and trades every day, whether it's going to other job sites or they're working with the HVAs. They're always looking for new trades. They qualify vendors and trades. They're checking their references. They're making sure their trade capacity is there. They're going out and doing sample pricing. They're doing test lots. And then finally, they do a full bid process, and then they negotiate the numbers. So there's that cost control and the value pricing. There are strong negotiation skills during this process to make sure that we're getting into a win-win situation. The purchasers never want to have it where the vendor's losing money, because if you do, it does nobody any good that the trade goes out of business 6 months later. So there's a real fine line and strong negotiation so that we get the most bang for our buck, and then we have successful trades at the same time. Contracting, they're documenting the agreement and their contract administration. So everyone's actually finalizing that master agreement, scope of work, specification sheets, making sure everything gets entered into the system that ultimately will generate those work orders or purchase orders. And then monitoring performance. You can't improve anything that you can't monitor. So monitoring the performance is critical. So you're going through every day, every week, every month, watching Vpos and Vpo reporting, budget tracking, schedules and warranty. That's just a few of many functions that they're constantly monitoring and usually reporting up to the owners of the company. So what's really critical though is when we talk about home building 101, it's really important to understand the things I just mentioned earlier in this presentation. Here's some definitions that are important in the department. Here's what the role of the purchaser does. Here's what the estimator does. But for all these other departments, what are ways we can help purchasing run as efficiently as possible? How can we make it so that as a company, and every department's going to have this type of list to help their department list. But for purchasing in particular, we want to control the number of plans. It's way too often that we have way too many plans, and we need to control the number of plans to what's the most popular selling, what's the most profitable, what are the ones we should be focusing our efforts on and evaluating that. Too many plans just becomes way too cumbersome for the department, let alone the trades that you're trying to bid to and negotiate to, having time to price that number of base homes plus all the options that are associated with it. So controlling the number of plans as a company is critical. Reducing the custom price requests, as we talked about, it's just something that if it's something that's really important to us, it should be created as a standard option, and we should really limit custom price requests because it just breaks down the process and procedures that we have. Develop standard structural options, ties into that. Selections prior to construction start. Sounds like such a basic thing, and every time I talk about this, it is such a basic thing, but we all know that it very rarely happens. So making sure that we have the selections done complete prior to construction start so that we know we can build the home effectively, not have Vpos and change orders and all kinds of confusion. And eliminate change orders during construction. We want to have as much of the options selected before the start as possible, and that goes along with the change orders. Even though there's revenue associated with it, it still bogs down the system when those purchasers or estimators can be focusing on something else. Also, we want to help maintain a good reputation. So reputation, this is a company-wide thing that we got to work on, which is paying the bills on time, no dry runs. For those of you who don't know what a dry run is, that's a vendor coming out and doesn't have the capability to do their job that day. The material's not there, the house isn't ready, whatever it might be. It's a huge waste of time and credibility for us with that trade. the job being ready. So it ties to no dry runs, but job being ready could be as simple as they could still work that day, but it's just super, super inefficient. Their material wasn't there on time. There's other vendors working that shouldn't be there. Reliable construction schedules, and then limit the amount of fill-in orders. All of this creates good reputation and ultimately makes us be the builder of choice. So when we talk about that, the builder of choice, adequate notifications, and generally well organized as a department, if we can do all those things, we can help the purchasing department do all those things, we'll ultimately create efficiency within that department, and we'll find faster turnaround times in a lot of the fires that come up every day within our companies. So finally, it's a thankless job. And I know we could say this about a lot of departments, but keep in mind, when you're interacting with the purchasers or you're interacting with the estimators, keep in mind that the ownership wants to lower costs. The designers want to new standard options and custom price requests. The sales team wants price sheets and new elevations for their buyers. Production wants better trades and their POs to be correct all the time. The trades and suppliers are calling, asking for higher prices and more work. Purchasing has to weave a delicate web to satisfy everybody. So it's just really important to keep that in mind. We always need to walk in somebody else's shoes and understand what they're going through. So when we're interacting as departments, it's critical to keep those things in mind and do what we can to help the department. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Ed for production's role.
Well, thank you. You know, one of the most important things that Rick and I work with a lot of builders on is making sure these two groups work as a team, being the production team and the purchasing team. When we have these two working as a team, we have a much better outcome. So between Jim, Rick, and I, we had a hard time whittling down all what it takes to make a building company work in less than an hour. But anyway, a lot of information in a short amount of time. So a lot of you guys, I saw the list of attendees, know that my roots came from the field. A lot of things that really helps me manage all the departments is knowing what the field needs. So what we forget about sometimes is we're stuck in the business, doing the business, that we really are. Building is a manufacturing process. That's really what we are. We're a manufacturer. Chuck talks about this all the time, is we're nothing but a manufacturing plant, except our plant moves all the time. So we're really taking raw material and then integrating the production process and then developing a finished product. It's very complex, but very simple. There are a lot of components that we need to consider. Purchasing is doing their job to buy the material and get it on site, get it on site, and we're going to take this raw material and take it, you know, and turn it into a finished product. Each component needs coordination. We talk a lot about, you know, the superintendent in the field has a lot of things to worry about. You know, where things are going, when things are coming, you know, who's delivering it. You know, we have to manage every single component. And the whole idea is we can't lose sight of the fact that we have to have a satisfied customer. Again, every house, if there are my small volume builders that may be scattered a lot or site, you know, on site, every house in every community is a small factor. Our superintendents, when we teach the superintendents, one of the things we teach them is they are the plant manager. So the first thing we do in the superintendents as we go around the room, we ask them how many homes they have under production. Sometimes it's as little as 3 to 5, and that could be for a small volume custom builder. And we have larger volume builders. Each super could have, you know, 15 to 25 homes. What we do is we have them do the math, and we ask them how many homes per year. And in the end, it comes up that some supers are running $18 to $12 million in business. That's huge. When you start looking at small restaurants, you know, we use the example of a Pizza Hut. You know, a Pizza Hut has lots of systems, processes, and manuals in order to produce a pizza. And meanwhile, their total volume at one of their facilities is a quarter of what our superintendents are responsible for. Not to mention, our plant is constantly moving. So what are the responsibilities of the superintendent? And part of what we're trying to do here in this series, in the 101, is give everybody the perspective of what a superintendent has to go through a day in a life, everything they need. They're responsible for the complete management and control of the construction process. That's not only the deliveries, that's working with purchasing, that's all the materials, that's dealing with customers, and the entire construction process. They had to orchestrate all these resources. It had to be very timely and cost effective. What we start seeing is in our superintendent classes is we get a lot of younger superintendents in our classes, and they start to realize how important their job is. So the next thing is the superintendent, the fields team is the representative. They are the frontline manager. That's why we call the class the frontline manager. The field is responsible for implementing the builder's objectives and plans. They're taking a one-dimensional set of plans and turning it into a true live two-dimensional plan. One of the key things about superintendents is they after doing this for years, we look at a plan and we start to visualize it. We know all the parts, the pieces. We had to take that pile of lumber. So what happens is it's pretty scary. A superintendent receives a pile of lumber. It's $35,000 in some cases dropped on the ground. It's their responsibility to coordinate that with the framer and others and build a house out of it. It's still one of my favorite things is to get out in the field and actually get your feet a little dirty and walk construction sites. Safe work environment. In the last few years, it's becoming increasingly more important on the safe work environment. We used to work with a lot of builders, implementing that safe work environment. We're the ones that have to maintain that. OSHA has been coming around more and more in smaller markets. Even if you've never seen OSHA, it's still our responsibility to keep our trades safe. Trades, in order to take shortcuts once in a while, will kind of bend the rules a little bit. It's really the superintendent. They are the master of making sure everybody's working safe. And when time comes, they've got to enforce that. So the next step is superintendents out in the field are responsible for enforcing all the agreements that the purchasing has made into legal documents. So now the superintendent has got to actually take that agreement and manage that team to get the product done. Rick just talked about all the documents. Jim went through the documents as well. A superintendent has to have knowledge of that master agreement. He has to know what's in there. We have to know what's on that PO. The superintendent is also responsible. He's the one who enforces and works with the trades to get that understanding for the scopes of work. This is all their responsibility. The superintendent ultimately is responsible for the builder's reputation. Not only the builder's reputation for the trades, the builder's reputation with the counties, municipalities, maybe the city, and also our buyers. A lot of times, the first thing the buyers see before they even come into the model or the sales center is our job site, clean, safe environment. Okay, so usually what happens is our superintendent, a good superintendent, is really your reputation. I like when I'm working with builders and we have really good superintendents. It makes it easy for everybody. Makes it easy for sales, makes it easy for purchasing, and at some point makes it easy for the land guys to go out and buy ground because they're the one enforcing all your policies and procedure. So the appearance of the job site, the first thing you do is when we were traveling, the first thing we do is before we get to the office, we drive the job sites. The biggest impact is that appearance on the job site. I want to make sure the job site is clean. I want to make sure the outside of the house is clean. Safety signs are up. The inside of the house is clean. Trades are in the houses, not piled up. Prior to this COVID situation, trades, Rick talked about dry runs. That is the death of a construction site, is when we have dry runs. The superintendent is the most important person on that. Again, I want to make sure my superintendent's keeping all the jobs clean, all the trades working. So in the end, we have Jim talking about the business of being a home builder. Rick puts the plan in place with product development, POs, making sure the products, materials are all being delivered timely. Superintendent then manages the schedule. Now the superintendent's next piece is to maximize the profits of the company. So one of the things that's pretty bizarre, some builders that I work with go, well, that's not really the superintendent's job. In most cases, purchasing has to manage and get the direct construction cost down to 50% or below. Then I hand off 50% of every dollar in sale price is up to the superintendent to manage. The superintendent's got a direct influence on the company's profits. So One of the things as we're working with superintendents, we do this in the superintendent seminar, you know, the one-on-one coaching we do with people, is we have superintendents have a direct correlation to being on time, on budget, and according to the scopes and quality standards. Our buyers are getting more and more, you know, discerning on what quality is. So that's our superintendent's job and role to enforce all that. So this next slide is a really good visual. It's a little tough to see if you actually download this and you look at it. Our superintendents have to touch almost everybody. We go from the first thing in the morning talking to a concrete tradesman, to a framer. I might see a homeowner. I have county officials coming by. You know, I have got manufacturers. I got manufacturers on the call. You know, we touch every single person. So and the other thing that happens, and I tell superintendents all the time, your personality's got to be somewhat of a chameleon to deal with all these people. Every single one of these people has to be dealt with slightly differently. I go from talking from a tradesman to a homeowner. There are two different tones of voice, two different ways of handling things. So we explain to superintendents, especially the young guys, you're not crazy. This is what your life is, okay? So in this next slide, I talked a little bit about the cost of doing business, how much the superintendent's responsible for. And when we do this in person, we actually get the whiteboard up, and whether Chuck's leading, I'm leading, or anybody else is leading and somebody's on the whiteboard, we start going through this. And I start taking a little piece of everything. You know, Super's got a little piece of land. They have a huge role in managing the direct construction cost, okay? Next is the indirects. That's the superintendent's salaries and other materials for the superintendent. So he's got a piece of that. Finance expenses, keeping the schedule on time. They get a small piece of that as well. Marketing expense, you know, I get builders tell me all the time, how's the superintendent responsible for that marketing expense? Well, out of 5 to 7% of the marketing expense, everything that we're doing to drive customers to the site really ends with how well that site is looking. When I pull on site and there's a pristine site, that's a huge marketing value. And then G&A, they have a piece of the G&A as well, because everything they're doing is because of the sport of G&A. There's not much there. When we add this all up, we usually come up with, if you took a little piece of everything and then a big piece of direct construction cost, they're usually over 60% of every dollar in the operation that they're handling. So in the end, Chuck always talks is our target should be a 7+% net profit. So what happens is in the real world, we're only getting about 3.5. I'm working with a couple builders right now that their net profit is not good enough currently. So we work with the superintendents and the purchasing team and everybody get those numbers down. Right now in the COVID situation, it's even more important to keep those numbers tight. So this one in person, what we do is we go around the room and we ask, what is management looking for from a superintendent? So what we go through, what are we looking for from ownership and management? Desire, dedication. They want to be a team member, organized, honest, intelligent, problem solver. You know, problem solver is very important. Leader, I want them to be motivated. They have to be a very good attitude, a good starter. Superintendents out there all alone, they have to be a tremendous self-driven, good starter. I need their ideas and integration. We have to have superintendents be self-improvement, commitment. Okay, they have to have an eye on satisfied customer. Very important, on time, on budget, and our quality. They got to be very professional. Our trades love the consistency of our superintendents, so does the office. They need to run effective and efficient sites. Clean job sites are very important. Customer service, they don't always run 100% customer service, but they're always interacting with our customers. Up until COVID, buyers are demanding more time of our superintendents. They have to have a take charge attitude. One of the best things I get when we're talking to trades and doing interviews is I like that super. He's really tough. He's firm but fair. Cooperative. They'd be very cooperative. All the people they've got to work with, okay? A good manager and good technical skills. That's a lot. When we're interviewing superintendents, these are some of the qualities we're looking for. Now, what do you want from management? What does the superintendent want from management, okay? Very few people, when we start talking about this in the operation, this was a key slide. I really want everybody from the purchasing team, the office, sales, design, whoever. What does the superintendent need from everybody else? And by this way, the superintendent is usually the one person in the operation that's kind of like out there on his own. He might have a laptop, he might have an iPad, but they don't often have direct connectivity to it sitting down at an office. They're just out there. We need all this information. So what do we need? We need intelligence. We need training. They need prosperity, commitment. We need the rest of the team to be very supportive, open-minded. We have to listen, okay? Clear chain of command is very important. A lot of times when working on consulting assignments, a superintendent has no idea who's running what, especially in soft cycle. We tell them to start the house. They don't know what to start. I don't have anything. So clear chain of command is very important. They like a little bit of respect. They may be rough and tough, but they like recognition and they like praise, okay? They like trust, opportunity for growth, okay? Knowledge, good teacher. We're bringing on a lot of younger folks now coming in to be superintendents. We're getting a lot of kids right out of college right now. It's a great opportunity. It's a great lifestyle. From the builder, they want a good reputation. Nobody wants to go work for a crappy builder. They want to work for a good builder. It's much easier to get your job done. Problem solver, fair, empowerment. And by the way, excessive compensation. Look how far down the list this came. If I have everything else, excessive compensation doesn't come up. So empowerment tools. What are empowerment tools? Rick and Jim talked about it. Our field supers have to be masters of their empowerment tools. When we go on site, we're looking in the back of their trucks and make sure they don't have brooms and tools. What do I need? They need to be the master of the policy procedure. Job site rules, they're the ones in enforcing this. Trade contractor agreements. Rick talked about scopes of work. It's extremely important that they have working knowledge of those scopes of work. They have to be the masters. We promote that those scopes of work should be in their hands, in an iPad, on a tablet, or just in a simple, good old-fashioned spiral book, okay? They have to know the purchase agreements. Quality inspection checklists are all them, okay? Certificates of completions have come and gone. Certificate of completion is when I have a trade actually give me the checklist that they've completed their work. The superintendent is very important on the empowerment of the authorization of payment. Never pay for something that's not 100% complete. It's extremely important. Working with production directors right now, the superintendent has to be the master of the construction schedule, working knowledge of that. Again, what does the superintendent? It's disaster. We don't have complete start package. So we teach the superintendents in the class. What's one of my favorite classes to do? You're a plant manager. How many homes do they carry at once? And it varies. How much windshield time do they have? Also, we talk all the time about what's the cycle time. If I can get that cycle time down, that's less square footage that a superintendent has to walk every day. In the production manager, we show them what happens when we start pulling cycle time down. Average sale price, that comes into play when they're running a company. Start doing that math, and you owners out there or operations people, start thinking how much money that superintendent's carrying all the time. That starts looking at that plant revenue, that community revenue. 3 plans to meet. The most important thing is when we're working with builders, we have to focus on all 3. I just was working with a builder recently on a bonus schedule. We want to start measuring the time. That's our schedule. Superintendents are responsible for that. They don't necessarily create the budget, but after purchasing releases the purchase orders, it's their responsibility to manage that cost. And the last thing is the quality. That's all in our superintendents. That's why we call it the trident of excellence, okay? Cycle time management. We talk about productivity scores. So productivity scores is when we start measuring this, whether, our production manager should be looking at this daily. I want to know that if I had 30 homes and each home had an activity, some houses may have a couple things happening over a couple of days, but every day there's something supposed to be completed. So I got 30 homes and I got 25 things are supposed to be completed. Well, if I only have half of that done, I've got a 50% productivity score. We should be looking at that. That's our superintendents watching that. So one thing we hear a lot is, well, it's just a day. Well, at the end of the house, I gave up a lot of days. I don't want to lose that. So when we start building schedules and working with builders coming out of the gate, we want consistency first, then speed. That schedule has to be reliable. Once that schedule is reliable, then my trades are going to buy in. After I get the reliability down, then I'll start working on pulling some time out. A day here, a day there. So this is one of the principles that we work with builders in person on cycle time reduction. I had a builder, the schedules were not working at all. So what do? We added a little bit of time. We added some buffers. Once we got it on time every single time, then we start pulling time out. And the biggest principle was making sure the trades were buying into this. Controlling the cost, job site waste. They're owning your job site. From the office, we can't see all this waste. I need the superintendent and the purchasing team to talk all the time. Get the waste out of your job site. Stop moving material around. Coordinate with purchasing, get it picked up, and get it off the next estimate. What is value? Our superintendents are the first person on site, are, again, eyes of the operation, seeing what the value is. Identify waste. Sometimes waste is in design that we may not have seen in a plan. The superintendent, a lot of times, is the one who sees, this is not really efficient. Can we pull this out? I want to circle back to them all the time. Okay. Superintendents are the one that are going to hold our trades accountable. They're not only the face of the building company, but they hold accountable. And a lot of that is on the demeanor and their tools and how they do this. Getting the trades to understand that leave a clean job site, you get a clean job site. When we started implementing this years ago, it was huge. And a lot of my working trades that complained about it said it was much easier to get started coming into a clean house. In the end, a clean house will get a much cleaner job when they're finished, okay? First time quality. First thing is trades inspected, each trade. I want to inspect my expecs. Then I want the trades to inspect each other. Get the trades to be work together. And then the trades inspect themselves. Make sure they're not doing bad work on top of other bad work. Get those teams talking. This creates higher quality. And this is all our superintendents and their relationships. A superintendent must be accountable for getting the trades and suppliers to the home when the schedules. This is all the superintendents keeping that going. Okay. So we talk about the unreliability cycle. Trades can't use the plan. The plan is the schedule. The trades aren't reactive. That's because the schedule is not being run actively. The job site sits empty. Okay. And then schedule is unreliable. And then the trades don't trust it. This is all our supers. So site manager, accessible all the time. Make sure the supers are out there. Trades can find them, homeowners can find them, homes clean, job sites ready, and are they 100%? Production, they must know the scope of work. We talked about this several times. It's very important, okay? Superintendent's ultimately responsible out in the field. We give them all the tools, the empowerment, the purchase orders, the trades, the responsibility. They are responsible for the cleanliness, the quality of the home. We've put the whole operation in their hands. Then customer service, okay? The customer is why we do this. Keep in mind, our ultimate goal is to produce a house for a customer. And in the end, happy customers. When we get referrals, we tell people all the time, one referral is worth 3 to 4%. Because I did no marketing and more than likely did not have a realtor. By the way, we love realtors. However, every time a homeowner refers somebody, it's invaluable. They require quality. You must deliver the first time. The trades must deliver for you, for ultimately the buyers. Okay. In the end, if the superintendent does their job properly, we become the builder of choice. The builder of choice, when I'm the builder of choice with the trades, my trades want to work for me more than they want to work for anybody else. Okay. So it's a big responsibility for the trades. And the last, we're going to bring Jim back as our closer, and then we have a few minutes for questions and answers at the end. Jim, you're up, bud.
Okay. I think why should you pay attention to us is really what this slide is about. The Shinn method is one where I learned it in 1981, first got exposed to it with Lee Evans, and then some classes that Chuck and Emma would teach. And I tried in our home building business from the early 90s on to not pay attention to it, because no, that doesn't apply to us. It really doesn't mean anything for us. We're different. We do all this stuff. And every time I tried to do something different, I found that if I just do it the exact same way that Chuck and Emma and Lee taught us, everything worked better. So it really does have it's very simple stuff. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why people ignore it, because they don't believe that simple things actually will work, or they believe that it's different. Now, we have people who've never been exposed to the Shinn method, and that's who this is for. We also have clients who paid attention to this for generations, but they get new employees and new managers who aren't aware of the home building industry, who aren't aware of the Shinn method, or they come even worse from other companies in the home building industry who've never really learned it the right way or the right terms, and they think that they know what it is, but they don't really know how to understand it and apply it. And then there's people who haven't been in the home building business before. Could be manufacturers, could be folks from Mark Systems, could be any place that you really don't know the home building business, but you somehow want to get to know them. So that's what these classes are for. It doesn't require you don't have to go any travel, you don't have to spend any money, you can stay at home, do the work, you can learn it quickly in a few hours, and most important, you can start applying it to the problems and opportunities you have right now. It's where you get the knowledge, but you start applying it into practical know-how immediately. That's what we think is probably the biggest reason why this structure of classes is going to work well. Next one, if you have a chance, Rick. Or maybe that's it. I don't know if that's all the slides or not.
You want me to go past this one that describes the two classes?
Okay, thank you. Oh, we have two of them. Sorry about that. One is the introduction to home building, which is for any home builder employee. If you're dealing with land development or construction company, if you're a work trade partner, supplier, dealer, manufacturer, professionals, any service provider, if you're trying to understand what home building is all about, this is a perfect one. It's really a preparation for all of our job and our function related courses that go on from here, whether it's purchasing, or accounting, finance, sales and marketing, land and development, etc. The Home Building 110 is all about the business. This is for people who are in ownership or in senior leadership, or those who aspire to those roles, or anyone who works with a trade partner or a supplier, material provider, manufacturer, etc., who needs to understand how senior leaders and owners think in the home building business. And it helps you prepare for, and it starts applying the principles that in our flagship course, Managing for Profit, which was Lee Evans at one point, how to get organized in 1 week. It's all about business planning strictly for the home building business and how to create a really strong, successful, thriving business. We're going to start, this stuff happens all the time. So you're always getting new employees. They're learning on their own all the time. So the question is whether they're learning it correctly or not. So the first course is going to be Home Building 101, that introduction for any employee and anyone who's new to the business or anyone who just wants a good overview. And then the first course for the ownership and leadership perspective is going to be the Home Building 110 one. And we should be starting those, I believe, in July or August, and Emma Jane might be able to tell you a little bit more about when those occur. Again, the Home Building 101 is what the home building business is all about, how we create a home, how we deliver it. Home Building 110 is about the business. What's the business all about? How can we create it? How can we sustain it? So they're going to have some similarities, but one is focused, they have a lot of similarities. The differences are that the Home Building 101 is all about the product itself, what a house is all about and its pieces and parts, the day-to-day job of getting it done, and the tactical work of causing it to happen. The Home Building 110 business one is all about the product itself being the business, and then the leadership and management and the strategic work that's necessary to build that business into a thriving and surviving organization. The similarities between the two, we're going to talk about standardized industry terms. An example is what Emma's written for decades, the Bible of the home building business for accounting and financial management. We're going to talk about some key management principles, including management by objective, exception, the one-to-one relationships, discipline, and compelling events to conform to plan, and just some examples that we talked about earlier about position guides, and how to deal with a base house and then option and upgrade things, and make sure we're really focusing on gross margin. So with that, we hope that you have learned a little bit about home building business and the way we're hoping to approach that and encourage it in the future. Questions or comments from here?
So Jim, real quick, one of the things that you kind of touched on is a couple years ago, I think it was in Denver, we actually did a very similar class for the manufacturers. We have several manufacturers on this class. So we did this for the manufacturers, really just to give them the idea of a better understanding of what the builders are going through so they can actually meet our needs. We had a whole room full of manufacturers and kind of went through a day in the life of purchasing. So, you know, what you just described, I think the 101 will be also something for manufacturers. As we work with builders in our consulting world, we start to find that, like to Jim's point, a lot of the team members really don't know what they're doing, how it actually impacts other departments. So, Emma Jane, do we have any questions?
So far, there are no questions. I guess you guys did a really great job of talking about how the departments work together. I hope that all of you, if any of you guys have any questions on how the interaction happens between the different departments, how one department is impacting another department as far as decision making is going, please feel free to go ahead and ask your questions either in the Q&A or the chat. I do have a comment from Eric Cofield. He said, great job. So that's good. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Rick, go ahead to the next slide.
Sure.
While we're waiting for questions. Real quick, while we're waiting for questions, if anybody has any other questions, I just want to remind you all that we have our rebate services that we offer. And as Monica mentioned at the very beginning, we are accepting submissions right now, and you can do your submissions through ECI Marks. If you have questions about that, you can contact Marla at our office. We also offer online and live courses, webinars, and on-demand training. We do have our on-site consulting. We are doing some really fun, innovative consulting right now using Zoom. So in a time period where there's limited travel, we're able to still offer you customized consulting services. We do offer our survey program, and we do have our builder groups, which have been essential during this difficult COVID experience that we've been going through, trying to navigate that. You can go ahead to the next slide. Here's a list of all of our different manufacturers that we are partnered with. And make sure you take a good look at that. It's good, especially now that it's submission time. See if there's any that you work with that you might need to go ahead and contact us to get your submissions in for this next round. And then again, don't forget to register for our upcoming classes through HBO. And the Home Building 101 will be the ones that we start in July. So they'll start mid-July. We have 1 to 2 weeks between each class. So we will have those up on the website soon. You can contact me, Jim, Ed, or Rick for more details on that, or Lisa also in our office. So I think that covers it. We don't have any questions so far. We only had one question about the upside down statement, and Jim did go ahead and answer that on the question and answer. That was, he basically drew out what an upside down income statement looks like. So you can click on the chat bubble and look at the answered question tab, and you can see what the upside down income statement looks like for that.
Wait, I'm here. I got a couple of comments.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, the upside down income statement. A typical income statement ends with profit, which means that we're working for a residual, the leftovers. As far as I'm concerned, we're in business to make a profit. So the first thing that comes off the sales price is your profit. That's the upside down. But the other thing I just want to mention, I think Jim and Ed and Rick did a fantastic job in an hour. I can't believe that they did it. But one of the things I want to thank Monica and ECI Marks for sponsoring this webinar, and to let you guys know that over the years, we've embedded most of our philosophies into the key softwares, these integrated softwares. ECI, if you've got ECI's Mark system, it follows a lot of what the three guys have been talking about today. And don't fight it, implement it. You'd be surprised at the results that you get. That's it. All my comments.
That's pretty short for you, Chuck.
I know I'm supposed to be the chief interrupter, and I was biting my tongue basically for the last hour.
Well, hopefully you have a tongue left. So
You did a great job.
So anybody who's never been we did our first webinar series just in a couple of weeks ago. If any of the team is on there that was on there, they did an unbelievable job. The homework assignments, their takeaways, the savings that they went back to their ownership with and ideas was just absolutely, it was crazy how well they did. So we're getting ready to open that up again in a week. And Jim's accounting actually made sense to me, and I'm the worst accountant in the world. So that's all I got. So
I got one other thing. I noticed that we had a lot of manufacturers on this call, and it might be too late because they might have dropped off. But we have historically done a how builders buy, and you saw how busy the purchasing department is as kind of the focal point for everything that goes on in a home building organization. If you guys would be interested in a webinar on how builders buy, just when you get the questionnaire at the end, just write it down, and we'll look at bringing that seminar in and producing it specifically for the manufacturers.
I also want to remind everybody that we do have a webinar Wednesday next week with Brown, and they are going to be doing a CP. They will be hosting a class. Sorry.
Well, that's good timing. Some of the things from working from home.
All right.
I think she went mute.
So,
I think
They are going to offer a class, and then they will follow it with a product demonstration. So please join us next week for that one as well. And with that, I'm going to say we are done for today, unless anybody else has any more questions. And my dog has on the webinar for you all today.
That was the applause at the end. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
See y'all.
Thank you, everybody.